Hey guys, Stephanie with AmericanMuscle.com here with this Vogtland Sport Plus lowering spring kit for 2015 and up S550 V6 and Ecoboost Fastbacks. The Vogtland Sport Plus lowering springs are going to be a good option for those of you out there that are looking for a lowering spring for a daily driven car or a street car with a larger drop. These will work for occasional track use as well, but these are a progressive spring that's going to maintain ride quality and still provide performance and enhance the looks of the car as well. These springs offer a drop of 1.3 inches all the way around. This is currently one of the largest drops that you'll find in a spring for the S550. Of course, a lowering spring is going to lower the center of gravity to provide some handling improvements, like reducing squat and body roll in corners and eliminating nosedive under hard braking. 1.3 inches is enough of a drop to eliminate nearly all of the gap between the tire and the fender, and it's going to leave the car sitting just above the wheels and tires. Just for reference, we did install these on our 2015 Ecoboost with 255 40-19s on the front and 305 30-19s on the rear. The drop will look a little different depending on your wheel and tire setup. The majority of the springs out there are only offering a 1-inch drop. The S550 chassis doesn't need a huge drop to obtain better looks or an improvement in handling. The S550 responds well to what some of the older generation Mustangs would consider a very small change in ride height. You'd be surprised at how well the S550 chassis responds to just a 1-inch drop in both the function and looks categories, so going to the 1.3-inch drop that these springs offer is going to have an impact on the looks of the car. I know 0.3 of an inch doesn't sound like a whole lot, but you will notice a difference. Vogtland does offer a sport spring as well that has a 1-inch drop all the way around if you think those might be better for you. And these are going to be compatible with both the factory and aftermarket wheel and tire setups, even though these are going to lower the car more than other springs will. The plus side of the S550 is looking so good and responding so well to a little bit of lowering is that you can create a functional low. By that, I mean it's low enough to look good, but not low enough to cause issues either on the tire or under the car. It's going to leave you with a very streetable car still. The other thing to consider when you're shopping for springs, besides the drop, is ride quality. These are a progressive spring, which means that they have a progressive spring rate, and that means they're a good option for a street car. They don't have a harsh ride quality, but they will firm up as you start pushing the car, which works to give you the best of both worlds between comfortable and functional. When it comes to ride quality, sometimes you can get a rough ride quality when you start lowering the car more, but that's not the case with these springs. The ride isn't that much different than stock, besides the car having less body roll and being more planted overall. These aren't a stiff spring, they're more forgiving. The ride will be a little stiffer, but it's not going to be uncomfortable. Overall, these springs are intended for street and occasional track use, so they do give a stiffer than factory ride quality, but they're made not to be harsh, so still comfortable, but also able to perform when you want them to. As far as price, these springs are going to be right in between the $200 and $300 mark, which is right where the majority of other springs are falling as well. Of course, there are some springs that are either less expensive or more expensive than that, and even springs that are all across this price range. I will say that these are closer to the $200 mark than the $300 mark, which makes them a little bit more budget friendly than some others. So the install here is going to take about 4 hours, and I'm going to call it a solid 1 out of 3 wrenches on the scale. You will need some knowledge to complete the install, so I'd recommend having a knowledgeable helping hand or taking this to a shop for the install if you haven't done this before, especially since it's always a good idea to get an alignment after the install anyway. This install can be done on jack stands if you don't have access to a lift, and as usual, a lift would be your best bet here. You're going to need a few tools, including a spring compressor, so just make sure you have that before you get started. You're going to need to get down to the spring and strut assembly, so everything like the wheels, the brakes, the ABS lines will need to be moved out of the way so you can pull the assemblies out of the car. The spring compressor will help you remove the spring from the strut and install the new front springs, which are compressed and installed the same way that the factory ones came out. The install is going to be the same for both sides. The rear is where things are going to get a little different, but there's nothing crazy here. Essentially, the IRS subframe will be dropped along with the rear shock mount so you can slide the rear springs out. Just like the front, the rear springs install the same way that they were uninstalled. There's no surprises here. The new bump stops go onto the shock, followed by the factory dust boot. The new springs can be installed, and the IRS subframe can be bolted back up, and that's about all it's going to take. Like I mentioned earlier, a fresh alignment after the install isn't a bad idea. Wrapping things up here, the Vogtland Sport Plus lowering springs offer a 1.3-inch drop all the way around the car. They have a progressive spring rate, and they're designed for street and occasional track use. As always, I suggest you check these out more online for yourself. And for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.